That's right. It's time to talk about some gaming news today, and we have two big stories to cover today. Story number one. According to Bloomberg, Sony Group Corporation has paused production on the PlayStation VR2 entirely. They are not even making any more of them. You might say, why? Because it needs to clear a backlog of unsold units. Huh? Yes, the reports are now coming out. The PSVR2 is a giant flop. Unlike PSVR1, excuse me, which actually sold quite well and caught on with a mainstream console audience, PSVR2 has not. And experts are citing an incredible lack of interesting game releases. If you take a look at the PSVR2 since it came out, what was it, 2 years ago? 1 year ago? Who even remembers, right? Because honestly, unlike the PSVR1, which did make waves, if you remember, when the PSVR1 came out, there was a ton of flagship titles for it that everyone kind of talked about for a while. There was the Batman VR game. There was Job Simulator for the first time on a console. There were all these different variety of games, remember? I think even, didn't even one of the, like, choose your own adventure style studios make one, and that was the one that had the heist, and it had you were in the cage with the sea life around you, and a shark comes at you and stuff. So it was gimmicky, sure. Oh yeah, it even had the Until Dawn time. Remember that? The Until Dawn on-rail shooter? So here's the thing. Basically, the games were definitely gimmicky, but they did catch on for a while. Notably, if you remember, Resident Evil 7, which was a flagship title for PSVR 2 or VR1, because it came out only a few months before, and then it had a compatibility patch, and it worked with VR, and a lot of people liked playing Final Fantasy, Resident Evil 7 in VR. They liked that first person. You could aim with your head and stuff like that. They found it very fun. But PSVR 2, when it released, which again, I can't even remember when it released because that's how much of a kind of a fart it is, right? It's a fart in the wind. It had the Horizon game, which was hilarious because they were like, oh, the Horizon game will be the killer app. Horizon Forbidden West didn't even sell as well as they wanted it to. It was considered underperforming. So if their major flagship title on the console sold underperforming, what made you think the VR title was going to sell well? It's like they put all their eggs in this basket and no one bought the basket, right? So the eggs are just sitting there rotting away. Outside of that, though, like what other PSVR 2 games can you mention has anyone really talked about at all? Have you heard about a single major game in PSVR 2? I haven't. And I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to game news and it comes to hype and social media. I don't hear anyone talking about it. Unlike PSVR 1, where there definitely was some hype for about a year, there's nothing. It's as if this thing doesn't exist. Everyone talked about the Horizon game at launch, and that was it. No one has been discussing this thing. And so, come to find out, yeah, it's because there's no games. There's literally nothing for this worth playing. So even though it has better technology, no one bought it. It's just sitting on shelves collecting dust. And I've been talking about this recently, right? I've been saying, listen, is there an audience for VR? There absolutely is. But it's not who Sony thinks it is. The mainstream gamer is not interested in putting on an intrusive headset and these waggle controllers or whatever and needing to have the proper spacing and everything in order to play VR. They're not. There's an enthusiast who is for it, but they already have it. They already bought the MetaQuest. They already have, what's the other, the HTC Vive or whatever it's called. They already have 2 or 3 of these devices for their PC already because they're PC gamers. Those are the enthusiasts for VR, not console gamers. There's just really no market for it on consoles right now. Now, if you remember, a few weeks ago, or a month ago, there was an announcement that PSVR 2 is now being researched to be compatible with PC. And at that time, I made the statement, well, wait, if PSVR 2 does actually become compatible with PC, that's amazing, because imagine you're going to get all the PlayStation exclusive VR games and ports, because there's a lot of games that are ported to work with VR after the fact, but you also will be able to play all the amazing and pre-existing good VR games that are currently only available on PC. Now, that's an idea, and I would guarantee you that's why Sony's doing that. If Sony had a great lineup of games on PlayStation 5 for the VR2 and it was selling, they wouldn't care about making it compatible with PC. But they don't. They invented the technology, but they didn't make any demand for it because there's nothing to play on it. You see? It's just absolutely ridiculous that Sony did this. Like, even when they were showing this off over the last few years and people were like, oh, you're excited for the PSVR2? I'm like, why would I care about it? The PSVR 1 within 1 year was an afterthought. No one was talking about it. No one was developing games for it. So why would you think that something different would happen with the PSVR 2? I don't care if the technology is advanced if there's no demand for the technology. And that's the problem. On console, there's little to no demand for VR. On PC, there is among the PC enthusiast community, but they already exist and they already have their devices. You see? So I guess we'll see what happens, but, you know, this is, I hate to say it, this is kind of an I told you so moment. When the thing was released, I said, it's too expensive, no games, because no one's going to care about the Horizon game. No one cared about the regular Horizon game, so why are they going to care about the VR version? I was dead on correct. This thing has undersold, underperformed, and they're not even going to make any more until people buy the existing ones that are literally just sitting there collecting dust.